Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and welcome to This Week in Mythic Plus. This week's Affix is Shrouded, and I'm recording this before we actually know what the other ones are, although Inspiring, Quaking, Tyrannical would be what it would have been had Season 3 continued, and there is a chance that they'll just keep it on the rotation and put in Shrouded, but obviously, by the time this video is out, you'll know what that one is. This video, I'm not going to be providing too much hard, concrete information. I kind of want to give you a quick crash course on Shrouded if you're not familiar with it, and then some TLDR information about the different dungeons that are going to be in the pool, because of course the dungeon pool is changing. We got Iron Docks, we got Grimrail Depot, we got Lower Karazhan, Upper Karazhan, Lower Mechagon, Upper Mechagon, Lower Tazavesh, Upper Tazavesh. Those are the 8 dungeons that are in the pool right now. Nagura has some great TLDR guides for each of them that are like 5 minutes long, really good videos for catching up. I'm going to go even quicker in this video, and then later throughout this week, I'm going to make some longer form videos about all the dungeons. But yeah, we'll start by just doing a quick TLDR of the Shrouded Affix. So the Shrouded Affix, the start of the dungeon you could choose above. I'm going to look at a Wowhead article here that looks at my PTR testing, so nice little meta look here. But at the start of the dungeon, you can choose whichever buff you want from this little broker over to the side here. They've actually nerfed the versatility since it was on PTR, so just 1% verse per stack, or 2% of the other stats, or a flat amount of mastery. So you'll hopefully know which of these is best. If you don't know for sure which of these is going to be best for your character, first of all, experimenting is great. Second of all, if versatility is close, the defensive value is really good, but it's unlikely at 1% that it'll be comparable with these. And third of all, you can go to raid bots and just do a quick stat weights sim of your character. So if you just go raid bots and do stat weights and put in your character. This is not a perfect way to simulate anything, but it can give you a little bit of an idea. If you see something's like twice as good, at least you could start with that one and see if that's the one that you're that works best for you. That can give you a little bit of an idea, but you get so much stat from the Shrouded Affix that things are going to get thrown off compared to the, you know, pretty local view that a stat weight sim will give you. So, you know, make your decision accordingly. And yeah, you can see it'll tell you, for instance, for DPS on my tank, my DK tank, crit would be the best stat, which is usually true for tanks. And then the others are pretty close, though. Verse is kind of close, but remember, you'd only get 1% verse and 2% crit and haste. So the crit and haste definitely would be the preferred choices here, for damage at least. But obviously, if you're a tank, you care about more than just damage. So finding the Dreadlords is the other thing. Some of the mobs throughout the dungeon are affected by a debuff. That means they turn into a Dreadlord when you pull them. They don't give count, and they have a couple of different abilities that they'll do at you. One is a tank, just attack, that heals them based on the damage it deals. So if you want, if you're a tank, you can use defensive against this. Not a huge deal. Or absorb shields, I think, as well, reduce the damage on it too. So if you're like a brewmaster, you Celestial Brew this, you might mean that you have to do less damage to these things. Mostly this is just something that's going to happen. Carrion Swarm, which is a frontal, it's quite a long cast time now. They've nerfed it since, I don't know, actually, if in this clip we have the Carrion, there's that Vampiric's Claws heal that it does on itself, and then the Carrion Swarm frontal, they've made it a lot more visible and longer cast than you'll see. Actually, it didn't even do that. It didn't even have abilities when we were first testing it, but yeah, it's like a frontal cone that you want to dodge. If you get hit, you get a healing reduction, and it's kind of nasty. And then finally, there's Nightmare Clouds that are kind of like purple clouds that don't step in them, or they will make you fall asleep. Really not too bad as far as mobs go. Don't really change what you can do with a pull, but it's worth noting that the mob they replaced doesn't give count anymore. Now, we've seen there's been data mined count adjustments in basically all of the dungeons that are in this season. So for that reason, like routes and stuff, or we gotta wait for MDT to get all that in and updated before you'll see my routes, for instance, this week, which hopefully will be out on like Thursday or Friday. And yeah, but just keep that in mind that the infiltrators don't give count. Okay, when you kill them, you get a little bit of health and mana, and one of the Dreadlords in this dungeon is actually Zolgamux. It's the same one in each dungeon for the whole season, I believe. So, for instance, in Docks, there's like a mob over here that will always be Zolgamux. Now, Zolgamux is not as nasty as it looks here on our early testing. The boss has a couple of things that it does. You've got Shadow Claws, which is just a dispellable dot on the tank. You've got Blood Barrier, which puts a shield on it, and then starts channeling and healing and damaging all of you. So healing itself and damaging all of you. So you want to nuke through this shield and then land an interrupt, because you can't interrupt until the shield's over. There's a shadow AoE that she does around herself, very visible, very easy to dodge. Dodge that. And then finally there's a hypnosis bat that starts chasing somebody and then tries to hypnotize them. You can CC this bat. So what happened for us on testing was the bat was not CCable in early testing, and it always lined up with the blood barrier, and it was really nasty. If it still always lines up with the blood barrier, what you probably want to do is CC the bat, nuke through the blood barrier, and then if the boss is low enough, you can just focus Zolgamux. Otherwise, you can switch to the bat and kill it off, and then switch back to Zolgamux. But you really don't want to let the hypnosis come off, because if the hypnosis succeeds, the person gets mind controlled, and I think will very likely die in most Keystone settings, because they get like a big healing absorb on them, and they take damage under that from the dot, under that healing absorb, or that damage absorb on them. So, yeah, really nasty if that cast finishes. Do not allow it to happen, but you can stun and stuff the bat now, so that's the plan for Zolgamux. That's the plan for the Affix in general. Zolgamux gives you 3 stacks of the stat buff. It may still be worth skipping. It's kind of an annoying mob. Depends on how much health it has. Generally, I think with the infiltrators, you're going to want to grab them early in the dungeon. Maybe towards the end of the dungeon, you can skip them, because, of course, the stat buff will last for, getting a stat buff at the start of the dungeon is more valuable than at the end of the dungeon. But by the time you do get to the end of the dungeon, you may have 20% extra crit or something like that, and be doing a lot more damage. So hard pulls at the end of dungeons will not be as bad as they used to be, as you remember from these dungeons, but hard pulls at the start of dungeons will continue to be nasty. So, real quick, what's going on in Docks and Depot? This is Grimrail Depot over here in Gorgrond. It is a linear dungeon. You literally just run in, hold the W key on your keyboard. The bosses, not too bad. First boss, you want to, if you're the tank, you want to you aim the charge from the one that you can tank towards where the one that you can't tank is, so that they are stacked up for damage. And remember that Slam is an interrupt that will interrupt any of your casts that are going off, so stop casting during that. I'm sure we'll have weak auras and such for that as well. Second boss, you just kill ads, get the ammo, put it in the cannons, and shoot the main cannon, like shoot the boss with it. And obviously don't stand in the fire. Third boss, same, no mechanics that require really an explanation, just dodge the things that look like you should dodge them. Iron Docks, on the other hand, is down over here. And it's, by the way, there are teleports in the upstairs of Oribos to all of these old areas as well. So don't ever do anything weird to get to these. Just go upstairs in Oribos, and you can get teleports to get to all of the Season 4 dungeons, except for Tazavesh, which you flight path to. Iron Docks, don't attack the first boss into Reckless Provocation. Don't attack the second boss, which is a council boss. Don't attack whichever one has the shield on it. Third boss is pretty simple, and fourth boss, you just chase the boss around as it jumps to either side of the ship, and line of sight whenever it's shooting. Okay, then we got Mechagon and Karazhan. Lower Kara is a lot of bosses. You start off by running to the opera event. So let's see, you start off here, run through. Got some annoying mobs here that I guess the MDT doesn't have their abilities in. But yeah, you come down, you do the opera event, bunch of different opera events that you can get. I don't want to go through what all of them do now. So depending on which one spawns, hopefully someone in your group knows what to do about them. You do get like 30 seconds of RP once you know which of the operas you actually are getting. Then, yeah, you got Maiden. So you have to head over to the side and do Maiden, Morose. You can jump down and do... Morose is really toxic in high keys. If you're doing this on any serious level of key next week, Morose is potentially going to be something that causes you some problems. That boss does a nasty bleed that stacks up. The way it works is from among people who don't have a bleed, Morose will pick somebody and put that bleed on them, and that lasts for the rest of the fight, and he'll prefer a healer if there's a healer in that eligible pool of people tied for the least stacks of the bleeds on them. So if you have like a Holy Paladin, they're really OP against this, because they can take the first one and then bubble right before the second one goes out, and it'll target them, and they'll immune that, and then they can bop, and then they can Dwarf Racial, and they can Kyrian File, and they can take like 6 of these before anybody else gets a stack. But the other thing that's going on with Morose is he has 4 guests around him. The 4 guests are really nasty. You have some CC things that you can throw at them, and what you want to do is CC, I think it's Crispin, that does a really nasty, like, bang attack that you want to dodge, so you can CC him and do him last. And once Morose drops below 60%, I think he breaks all of them out, so, you want to kill them quickly, cleave them down with the boss, but don't push them below 60% until you're ready until you've killed all of them, so you can kill the last one, or whichever 2 you've CC'd. Then there's Adaman. I don't want this video to go too long, so I don't want to go to too much detail on all these fights. Upper Kara. Okay, so Upper Kara's got a pug killer in it. There's Curator, which shouldn't be too bad. Just switch to the ads as they spawn, and then nuke the boss during the evocation. Then there's Medivh. Shade of Medivh has 3 intermissions, all of which are pretty nasty. The big one is if he does the Ring of Fire, don't touch that, don't move. And then interrupt all his casts if you can. Try and set up an interrupt order with your group. Mana Devourer, you want to land, you want to soak the orbs, not let them actually reach the boss. It's kind of like Orifrion in Spires of Ascension. Immunes and stuff against that are really strong. And then last boss, not too bad. Most of the mechanics are pretty well telegraphed, so yeah. Then we've got Mechagon. Junkyard, the bots are now in MDT, so you can find where to get these. Pick Haste for your Shrouded thing, because the Haste will scale really well with the Shockbot. If you're in any, even any level where Shrouded's active, that's going to be worth. Shockbots scale with key level, so the higher you get, the nastier and better Haste gets. One of the bosses is going to have a floating aerial unit over it. Don't go to that boss first. That boss is like hard mode, and you shouldn't do that on M+. I don't know why it's still in M+, but yeah, whichever thing that's over, do not go there. And then, yeah, the bosses, let's see, Gobamak, you gotta charge 5 different things whenever he does a smash, so everybody needs to soak the smash, and then you run to 4 pillars and a robot, and charge them up quickly, because you have a dot until you do. Trixie and Nano, you just need to go into the dust pool whenever you're targeted by Megatase, or immune the Megatase. Gunker, you're just trying to stay in the cleany water circle and break out whichever bots get gunked. And then last boss, also not too bad. During the intermission, you run up to whichever side is active and do a little obstacle course, and then charge the thing. Then blow your cooldowns and nuke the boss and try and kill it before it finishes its recast. Workshop. So first boss Workshop, if you're in a coordinated group, you can do some nonsense with the hammers. I'll have some videos showing how to do that later in the week, but basically you like bait the hammers. You can use the hammers to completely kill No Mercy and do a huge amount of damage to Platinum Pummeler as well. So if you're in a group that can do that, that's great. If not, though, you literally you need to hit Platinum Pummeler with the hammers 3 times before he actually starts taking any real amount of damage. And No Mercy, you need to kill yourself, or you need to kill it yourself, but it also does take damage from the hammers, so if you can, aiming it at a hammer and then blasting it with the hammers at the start of the fight can be really good. Cujo, you gotta hide behind the box when he does Venting Flames. There's a buff on your character frame, a little stealth icon that means you are behind it. You can get a weak aura to track that as well. And there are some spots where your tank can tank it such that you can actually still hit the boss while you're hiding from it. So if your tank knows what they're doing, that can be something you can do for a little bit of extra value. The big thing is whenever he does his leaps at players, he'll always leap at the farthest targeted player first. So if you're in that spot and you have something like a blink to get away from it, or a feign death or a vanish, which will stop the jumps if it's targeting you, you want to be the furthest away person, or at least know whether you're the furthest away person so that you can know whether it's about to immediately start jumping at you and react quickly enough to press your button. Let's see, then Mechagon City. You have to actually do the gauntlet here. We didn't have to do this back in Awakened season, but you do now this season, so good luck, get good. Machine of Sparkflux, there's like 4 million different things they're all ground effects that you can see on this fight. It's a hard fight. Then this pack is a really nasty one. If you do this pack, I believe it'll be skippable if you do everything else in the dungeon, but pretty nasty one. It'll be nice that you'll have stats from Shrouded by the time you get to it. Or you can skip this one. Even a death skip, I think, is very much worthwhile on this pack. And last boss actually is not going to be too bad without an awakened mob at the start of the fight, which was a lot of the difficulty. Just there's quite a bit of raid damage and quite a bit of like one-shotty damage when he's targeting people to zap with, but just make sure you don't hit anybody else with it and use your defensives accordingly when you're being targeted by that. Doesn't really start to get nasty until high keys though. Yeah, and then there's the Tazaveshes, which obviously you're already familiar with. They've rebalanced the count in them, apparently, and they've nerfed some of the mobs. They've nerfed the Coastwalker Goliath. They've nerfed the Postmaster. They've nerfed Time Cap and Hooktail a little bit. So hopefully that dungeon's not too much of a bad one. And we'll see where all the Shrouded mobs are. Later this week, I'm going to have routes up on Raider.io. When I do, I'll try and come back and put them in the description as well, and I'm sure I'll make some videos throughout this week all about these dungeons, because I do plan to do quite a few keys this week. So, should be a good time. Should be a good season. I'm looking forward to it. You can get some very good items out of M+. This week in particular, the Valor is uncapped, so now is like the best time to just spam those keys, depending on what the affixes are, if they're good or not, which, if they're tyrannical, quaking, inspiring, kind of a mid-week, but, you know, we'll take what we can get. Anyways, good luck in your Shrouded keys this week. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.